Meeting of the Coolidge City Council to order, and ask that you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Norma, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gilbert Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Huddleston.
Here.
Mayor John Thompson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackie Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Lewis.
Here.
And Councilmember Tatiana Murrieta. Thank you.
We have a quorum. First order of business under presentations is an employee of the quarter. That's Police Officer Kevin Francoeur, and this is discussion only, but I would ask the council to come down with me while we present him his employee of the quarter information. I don't get out here very often, so this is pretty interesting. Today, we are going to recognize Officer Kevin Francoeur, the officer of the quarter. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Kevin, on your selection of City of the Coolidge Employee of the Quarter, October, November, December 2014. On October 29, 2014, at 4:47 a.m., you were dispatched to a local resident to assist Southwest Ambulance with a cardiac arrest. Commander Walker was aware of that call, but was not aware of how you played such a vital role in saving the victim's life. On October 29, 2014, Commander Walker received a text message from Southwest EMT Gary Lewis. Mr. Lewis wanted our agency to know that the entire Southwest Ambulance crew on the scene in the early morning hours of October 29, 2014 was very grateful that you were on the scene and assisted them with CPR by doing chest compressions. Mr. Lewis said you did the best job on compressions we ever saw from an officer. Officer Francoeur, you arrived on the scene to find the ambulance crew preparing to work a full code, that's no pulse or breathing. The paramedics were busy preparing the medications while the EMT was assisted breathing. You, without asking or being asked, immediately started chest compressions. You continued chest compression for approximately 20 minutes while the ambulance crew was injecting needed treatments, preparing IVs, communicating with the emergency room physician, and preparing for transport. A second ambulance arrived with EMT with Lewis on board. Lewis offered to relieve you, but you replied, "No, you all do what you got to do. I can keep going." When it was time to move the patient to the awaiting ambulance, you helped the ambulance crew carry the patient down a narrow hallway, which required the backboard the patient was strapped to be turned sideways. During this time, you held onto the patient so the patient would not fall off the board. According to Mr. Lewis, the patient was revived and flown to the trauma center in the valley, and you were a big part of that. Mr. Lewis also stated, "We do this daily, so it is normal for us. I haven't seen many cops help like he did." Your actions on October 29th was truly heroic. When other medics arrived, you simply could have turned chest compression over. Instead, you realized that the other medics would be providing advanced life-saving measures if he continued the chest compressions. Officer Francoeur, you always have a smile on your face. Your dedication to the Coolidge Police Department and the City of Coolidge is unwavering. Thank you. Since Councilmember Lewis was acting in his profession, I'm going to let him say a few words briefly, and we can move on with our meeting.
I just wanted to add I spoke to the family that Officer Francoeur helped out, and they expressed their appreciation and wish they could have been here today, but they couldn't, but they wanted to say thanks.
Thank you. Item number 4, monthly report and business spotlight recognitions by the Coolidge Chamber of Commerce. And that's usually, there she is, Ms. Parsons.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Our December spotlight is Liberty Tax Service. They were located down in the Safeway Plaza. This is their second season, right next door to Tags. I'd like to ask Joe and you guys.
Thank you, Lynn. We're happy to be here. And we've been in Coolidge now for entering our 7th tax season. And we look forward to another strong year here and meeting more business people and everybody. We do full service taxes, individual business. We also always give free notary service. And we're now in the insurance business doing health insurance. Joe's a licensed agent. I'll probably tell you a little bit about that.
My name is Joe. I just want to say we're very glad to be part of the Coolidge area here. We're excited about the growth potential, and if you need kind of help with your taxes, insurance, notary, we're available. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. I'm sure you're going to be busy here pretty quick, if not already. So thank you very much. We appreciate your service.
That's one of my favorite parts, to get them up here. Our reinvestments for December are Brown's Cooler Furniture and Appliance, Barnett's Better Buys, Jack Harrison General Contractor, Coolidge Examiner, Thermo Temp Inc., United Way, Desert View Communities, Cox Business, K&S Sports, Greek Island Grill, Crop Production Services, Sun Life, Family Health, Central Arizona College Laser Specialists, VFW, and Cabot. Our webpage hits are 197,716. Our walk-ins are 370. Phone calls are 246. Top states that visit us was Alaska and California. Top foreign state was Canada. The ruins, the Cuscaran Ruins National Monument, visitors for the month of December is 5,365. Year-to-date is 65,858. Some of the events coming up, February 12th, the history of Florence Prison. On February 14th, we have a Valentine's Day Radio Theater. February 14th also is the annual Homes Tour in Florence. The 18th is also the Job Fair. On the 20th, we have the Magic Illusionist of Eric Gillum, along with the U.S. Air Force Band, the Blue Yonders. Boy, the people are packing in for that event, I have to tell you. Beginning drawing and painting for fun, and I have Coolidge Cotton Days coming up on the 27th, along with Paint Your World Quilt Show, and also the Thunder of Hope Bike Run, which is affiliated with the Cotton Days. Jimmy Dale will be in concert on February 28th, and Grief Support Group on the March 5th, and Gory Annual Carriage Race is on March 5th through the 9th. If you like more information, go to coolidgechamber.org. Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
No. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lynn.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda is call to the public. This is a section where you have 3 to 5 minutes. If you have something to say to the council, you're welcome to come up and state your name and your address. And you've got 3 to 5 minutes to state something. If it is in regards to anything that's on the agenda, though, you may want to wait until that item is called. So if anybody is wanting to come up, we'd sure like to hear from you. All right. Seeing nobody jump up, we're going to move on. Approval of minutes, discussion and action. Item 5, City Council regular meeting, January 12, 2015. Item 6, City Council special meeting, January 21st, 2015. And item 7, City Council meeting, regular meeting, January 26, 2015. Are there any amendments to any of those? All right, not hearing anything. Is there a motion?
To approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is business items for consent. I'm going to ask the council if anyone wants any of these items pulled off for separate review.
Yes.
Councilman Lewis?
Item 10.
Item 10. Anybody else? No? All right, then we're going to pull item 10 off. I'm going to read the rest of them. Consider approval of reappointing Anthony Moore and Danielle Tucker to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for another 2-year term. Item 9, consider approval of making the third quarterly payment to Access Arizona in the amount of $4,455.75 for FY 14-15 membership. And item 11, consider approval of lifting the freeze on the Capital Improvements Fund in the amount of $38,748.43 to purchase a Bosch wheel alignment system and Challenger 4-post 15,000-pound lift capacity open front lift, utilizing the Arizona Department of Administration State Procurement Office contract number ADSP 013-039976 and through Napa de Auto, and waiving the city's sealed bid requirements in the best interest of the city. I see one of those as a resolution, Norma, so we'll have to...
Well, that item's been pulled.
Oh, that one's been pulled. Well, okay, so then, in that case, is there a motion to approve these?
Mayor,
Yes,
I make
sir.
a motion that we approve consent agenda items number 8, 9, and 11 as read.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Mr. Fitzgibbons, in light of the fact that I don't think most people are here to hear about item 10, can we move item 10 to the back of the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you can move it.
All right, then that's what we'll do. So business, regular items. Number 12, resolution number 15-04, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Pinal County, Arizona, approving and adopting the pre-annexation and development agreement between the city of Coolidge and Pinal Land Holdings, LLC, and the city of Mesa in compliance with ARS 9-500.05. Mr. Miller?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. As earlier this evening, I talked briefly about the next several agenda items and how they are all somewhat related. This particular agenda item, as you mentioned, is the resolution requesting the council to approve the pre-annexation development agreement with the city of Mesa and Pinal Land Holdings involving approximately 11,437.46 acres. In the way of discussion and for the benefit of the audience here tonight, I'm going to kind of follow right along with the staff report to kind of give them the historical background as well. The mayor and city council directed city staff to record a blank petition on 2 annexation areas located south of the current city limits boundary. The Pinal Land Holdings Company has acquired 1,621.57 acres from the city of Mesa and has a real estate purchase agreement and escrow instructions to acquire the balance of the city of Mesa property, which is approximately 9,815.89 acres. Much of this property is located within the 2 annexation areas that you'll be discussing tonight. Some of the property is already in the city limits. As a condition of annexation, Pinal Land Holdings, LLC, and the city of Mesa, in addition to some other property owners, Walton International, LLF Holland Farms, 853 LLC and Hohokam 320 LLC are requiring pre-annexation development agreements to be negotiated and approved by the mayor and council prior to their signing off on the annexation petitions. These conversations have been taking place over the last several months. In fact, I think about 6 months, since August, 6 or 7 months. The pre-annexation development agreement negotiations have been going on for some time, and most recently, the city of Mesa entered into the pre-annexation development agreement negotiations. And in fact, tonight with us from the city of Mesa is the city attorney, Mary Grace. She's right back here. She, as we, I think, reported at the last council meeting, the city of Mesa did review and approve the pre-annexation development agreement at a recent city of Mesa council meeting. And she also tonight provided me with annexation petition that will be discussed in a later item this evening. The purpose of the pre-annexation development agreement is outlined in the recitals of the agreement that you have before you. It's authorized by the Arizona Revised Statutes, and the city has previously negotiated these types of agreements. But this really covers one of the largest land areas. When we really think about this pre-annexation agreement with Pinal Land Holdings and the city of Mesa, this was a strategic agreement and will be a strategic annexation in that it does take the city limits all the way down just south of the Corrections Corporation of America CCA facility on the well south of the current city limits boundary. Puts our annexation area and our city limits within less than 5 miles of the I-10 interstate down directly south of here. This agreement is because of the large land area, they requested a rather large term. Obviously, a large land area like this is not going to develop overnight. The majority of the property that Pinal Land Holdings and the city of Mesa owns has been in farming operations. The city of Mesa actually purchased this land, I think, in the early 90s. When was it? 85, I'm sorry, 1985. Primarily for water rights. They called it the Mesa Water Farm for a long time. And so, until recently, they kept that land and decided recently that, that wasn't necessary, that they offered this land for sale, and that's why the Pinal Land Holdings Company came to the city of Mesa and started negotiating the purchase of that land from them. The city, through these negotiations, were represented by city staff, the Fitzgibbons Law Offices. We also retained Mr. Bill Sims to assist us with these negotiations and discussions, as well as the CFD attorney. I'm drawing a blank, Dennis, help me out.
Mike Cafiso.
Mike Cafiso. He also represented the city during the discussions on the Community Facilities District, which is also part of this agreement. The Rose Law Group represented Pinal Land Holdings, LLC, in the negotiations. And these contractual negotiations were very lengthy and complex and basically prescribe the rules and procedures that are going to be looked at as the property develops over the next several decades. As I mentioned, this agreement goes for 25 years and then has an automatic 25-year renewal period, so has a 50-year agreement. But we are dealing with a very large land area. In fact, if you look at all of the land area in this annexation with Pinal Land Holdings, it's really larger than all of the developed part of Coolidge today, that part that is developed. Not, the entire, both of these annexations tonight will bring in a little over 13 square miles into the city. We are this evening recommending for your approval the pre-annexation development agreement with the city of Mesa and Pinal Land Holdings involving this acreage, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. Dennis is also here, and we have other staff that were very actively involved in the negotiations through this process, as well as the council through a number of meetings prior to tonight.
Mr. Miller, for those of us who don't know, I'm sure there are many people out there wondering why we would want to take something like this on. Could you give us a brief, for you that's,
That's hard.
yep, but could you give us a brief idea of the economic benefit to being within or under 5 miles from a freeway?
Thanks for asking that question. You know, I do wear the economic development hat for the city and have been working with lots of potential clients, existing customers that are in Coolidge today, expanding their industry and their operations. But really, as we work closely with Access Arizona and Mr. Jim Dinkle and the Arizona Commerce Authority and a lot of these individuals that are responsible for evaluating what they call project information forms, PIFs, a lot of potential industrial prospects, when they come in with a project information form, they basically say, does the city have lands within 5 miles of an interstate? If we do, then we're put automatically on the list as somebody that they will consider. Right now, the city of Coolidge, with our annexation boundary or with our city limits boundary, we're well beyond 5 miles of the interstate. So this puts us in to contention on several of these project information forms that come in. The property that we're looking at with the Pinal Mesa land is it follows the Union Pacific Railroad from the south out of the Eloy area. I know that Mr. Jakob Anderson, he may talk to you a little bit more later about some of his ideas in this annexation area, especially the idea of potentially an inland port that would be along just north of I-10 along the Union Pacific frontage, along Highway 87. Really thinks it puts us in a more competitive advantage when we're starting to work with these prospects that are really looking for property that's location, location, location. And the three key words in the real estate and development business is location. So that's really, I think, the primary focus that puts us in a real competitive advantage by having land down there.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to open up for questions from the council, and then if any members of the audience want to speak, they'll have an opportunity. Anybody down here? Councilmember Lopez?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add, these type of agreements, they go forward many years. When I worked for the city of Chandler in the planning department, I was out inspecting, and it was like 1989. I was inspecting the Price Chandler area for the planning department, and back then the 101 wasn't in, and neither was Chandler Fashion Center. And look at it now, 25 years later. So these things don't happen overnight, but you have to take the effort and you have to plan ahead. And for quality development, which we have some quality developers, and look at that and for the future of the city and the future of our children, and make sure these things happen and in a right way. So just wanted to state that, and thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Mayor, if I may, just one of the things I've neglected to mention, and I hate to be too verbal, but this also establishes a boundary for the city. We are really defining our ultimate boundary to the south and to the basically to the west with these two annexations this evening. We really basically set up our future boundaries. There's a lot of land between here and some of these annexations that will be the subject of future annexations, but this is pretty strategic in defining our future boundaries to the south and to the west.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anytime you get involved in one of these, and you've been involved in many of them for different jurisdictions, but here in Coolidge, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing, and there are going to be people that are not going to agree with what we're doing, but we live here, and I think it would be very advantageous to the future of Coolidge to set the boundaries and to give us a level the playing field with those communities that have a freeway, or even Florence to the, what would it be, northeast, where they have Superstition Villas coming in and everything coming that way. So we're going to be landlocked soon enough, and I think we need to take our opportunity to get where we are going to establish our borders and then work there. So thank you. Does anybody have anything to add to that from the public? Seeing nobody approach, I'm going to call for a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 15-04 as presented.
Second it.
Motion is second. Norma?
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 13 is resolution number 15-05, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Pinal County, Arizona, approving and adopting the pre-annexation and development agreement between the city of Coolidge and Hohokam 320 LLC and LLF Holland Farms 853 LLC in compliance with ARS 9-500.05. Mr. Miller?
I'll try to be a little more brief because it's basically the same information, just with a different entity. This is, again, a pre-annexation development agreement with the Hohokam 320 LLC and the LLF Holland 853 LLC, involving 848 acres. Again, the mayor and council directed us to record these annexation petitions. This is these properties lie within the smaller of the two annexation areas, north of basically Highway 287 and south of our existing city limits boundary. The agreement negotiations, again, were represented by the same people from the city side. Carolyn Oberholzer was the attorney representing the Hohokam 320 LLC and LLF Holland 853 LLC, as well as Mr. Ken Quartermain. Ken Quartermain is here this evening. These, again, everything else really ditto from the last. A little different in terms of the pre-annexation development agreement here. It follows, it's a much smaller area. The terms are different. It follows much more like the agreements that we have previously negotiated in the past with other developers. And so we are this evening recommending that the mayor and city council adopt the resolution to approve the pre-annexation development agreement with Hohokam 320 LLC, LLF Holland 853 LLC, involving approximately 848 acres. I did see tonight in a later matter the annexation petitions that had been signed by the two individuals or two signatures that represent the two LLCs. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have.
I don't have any. Does anybody on the council have any questions?
No, sir.
How about in the audience? Anybody want to speak to this issue? And seeing none, I'd call for a vote.
Mayor, I move to approve 1505.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Norma?
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson,
Yes.
and Councilmember Huddleston.
No.
Okay. Item number 14 is resolution number 15-06, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Pinal County, Arizona, approving and adopting the pre-annexation and development agreement between the city of Coolidge and Walton, Arizona, LLC, and Walton International Group, USA, Inc., in compliance with ARS 9-500.05. Mr. Miller, is that you?
Yes, it is. And
Thank you,
again, I don't know that I want to add a whole lot to what I've already said to keep the comments brief. This, again, has been ongoing with the other agreements. In this case, the representative for the applicant in this particular pre-annexation development agreement was Mr. Coolidge, who's here. Jen Ruby is here with Walton, and they own a lot of land in the Coolidge area. I don't know if I missed out anybody. I'm missing some other names, and I apologize. But Walton owns other lands within the city of Coolidge. We recently reviewed and approved a PAD for Walton for the Vista Del Monte project. They've been with a community for quite some time and in other negotiations, and be happy to entertain any questions you have tonight. But we did also review, and they do have their annexation petition with them this evening, and we are recommending approval of the pre-annexation development agreement.
Thank you, sir. Any members of the council have any comments?
No, sir.
The audience? In seeing no movement, I will call for a vote.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 15-06 as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Norma?
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 15, ordinance number 15-01, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge extending and increasing the corporate limits of the city of Coolidge, Pinal County, state of Arizona, pursuant to the provisions of Title IX, Chapter 4, Article 7, Arizona Revised Statutes and amendments thereto, by annexing thereto certain territory contiguous to the existing city limits of the city of Coolidge, consisting of 5,597 acres, more or less, and located within Township 6 South, Range 7 East, Township 6 South, Range 8 East, Township 7 South, Range 7 East, Township 7 South, Range 8 East, all of which are portions of the Gila and Salt River Base and Meridian, Pinal County, known as the Pinal Mesa 1 annexation, and authorizing initial zoning of agriculture for said territory. Mr. Miller?
Okay, thank you. This, again, now that the pre-annexation development agreements have been discussed and approved, this is the time to consider the annexation of property into the city limits. This is the larger of the two annexations, where we're calling it the Pinal Mesa 1 annexation area, which involves approximately 5,597 acres, more or less. The public hearing for this annexation was conducted earlier this year, following our recordation of a blank petition with Pinal County Recorder's Office. Since the time of the initial hearing, when we invited the public and everyone that had property within the annexation area to comment, we have been able, and we did reduce the size of the annexation area slightly. We took some properties out of the annexation area, which we are allowed to do. Once you hold an initial hearing, you can reduce the size of the annexation area, but the city cannot increase the size of the annexation area. We also cannot change the annexation boundary once the city starts receiving petitions. So what you see before you this evening is the final annexation boundary. We do have annexation petitions submitted to us by 3 property owners within the annexation area, the largest being the city of Mesa, which owns the majority of the property. We also have signatures from 2 other property owners. One that is this area here in yellow, which is Arubis Metro Partners 4 LLC, and this area in blue, which is Ironwood Development Inc. So those are the 3 property owners that have signed in favor of the annexation. There is 1 property owner in the annexation area, Mr. Reeves, who owns a 1-acre piece of ground in the annexation area, who would not sign the annexation petition. There are some other property owners on the map. However, under the state law, we're not required to get their annexation. They have no assessed value. The Union Pacific Railroad, we have a piece of Pinal County property in there, but there's no state land in this area. So we do have for you this evening, staff has verified we have sufficient petitions submitted to this office. I've seen them tonight, representing the majority, more than 50% of the total value of the property. And with that, we are able to recommend to the mayor and council for your approval the Pinal Mesa 1 annexation ordinance, annexing approximately 5,597 acres into the city of Coolidge. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Council, any questions?
No, sir.
Anybody from the public? Seeing nobody approach, I would look for a motion.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve ordinance number 1501 as read.
Second.
Norma?
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 16, ordinance number 15-02, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, extending and increasing the corporate limits of the city of Coolidge, Pinal County, state of Arizona, pursuant to the provisions of Title 9, Chapter 4, Article 7, Arizona Revised Statutes and amendments thereto, by annexing thereto certain territory contiguous to the existing city limits of the city of Coolidge, consisting of 3,058.7 acres, more or less, and located within Township 6 South, Range 7 East, and Township 6 South, Range 8 East, which are portions of the Gila and Salt River Basin and Meridian, Pinal County, known as the Pinal Mesa 2 annexation, and authorizing initial zoning of agriculture, AG, for the portion of said territory. Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Again, this annexation is the smaller of the two, representing 3,058.3 acres. We have modified the boundary of this annexation, much like the other one, since the public hearing was held earlier this year. There were property owners who weren't in favor of this annexation as well as the other one. We weren't able to remove some of them. We did remove others. We do have sufficient signatures this evening based on the tabulations that I took earlier that would have 4 property owners, including Walton International, Hohokam 320 LLC, LLF Holland Farms 853, and Pinal Land Holdings. 4 property owners signing petitions in favor of the annexation, and the majority of those, just for everybody's benefit, those properties basically fall in this area north of the midsection line, approximately a half mile north of Highway 287, which is this alignment. We have 2 property owners that did not want to be annexed. These 2 property owners sent letters requesting the city not annex their property. However, the city, as we did this annexation petition, felt it was important to annex down and take in property down where the SRP substation and TEP facilities are located. We do have sufficient signatures, as I mentioned, with majority signing in favor of the annexation, representing the majority of the value of the annexation area. And I might also mention, and I failed to mention on the prior annexation ordinance, a part of the annexation ordinance involves the initial zoning of properties that are not being zoned through the planned area development zoning process, which are the next 2 items on the agenda. So those properties that are not going to be zoned PAD or planned area development tonight, these properties here are coming into the city limits with these comparable zoning that the county had. So the Pinal County had those properties designated as general rural in Pinal County, and we're bringing those properties in as agricultural, which is comparable to the county's zoning with this annexation ordinance. We're allowed to do that. So same way with the other annexation, when you approve the annexation ordinance, you're basically approving the initial zoning of those properties that are not part of or subject to a PAD approval this evening. Their lands will also be zoned agricultural this evening with the approval of the ordinance. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience have anything they want to say? They want to come up and comment? Seeing nobody approach, then I would call for a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion we approve ordinance number 15-02 as read.
Second it.
There's a motion and a second. Norma?
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 17, ordinance number 15-03. An ordinance of the mayor and the city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, rezoning certain parcels of land from the Pinal County designation of general rural to the planned area development zoning classification for the Encendero pad consisting of approximately 13,058.1 acres, more or less, generally located in the area bound by McCartney Road to the north, La Palma Road to the east, Highway 287 to the south, and Curry Road to the west, legally described as portions of assessor's parcel numbers 401-01-0050, 401-01-026 Bob, 401-01-031D, 401-01-034 Bob, in sections 1, 11, 12, and 13 of Township 6 South, Range 7 East, and portions of the assessor's parcels numbers 401-24-042 Bob, 401-21-0390, and 401-73-006K in sections 17, 19, and 20 of Township 6 South, Range 8 East, all of the Gila and Salt River Base and Meridian, Pinal County, Arizona. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, while you were able to rezone some of the properties that are not part of a planned area development as agricultural through the annexation process, this particular request came in for rezoning of the property was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to the annexation, because the Planning and Zoning Commission is an advisory board. They are able to take and consider these types of requests even before the annexation, so that when you consider the pre-annexation development agreement and subsequent rezoning, this has already been to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have held public hearings, which are required per the Arizona revised statutes. The mayor and council held a previous public hearing on this rezoning request, so that's already been done. This is not a public hearing tonight. All this is the rezoning that is a exhibit to the pre-annexation development agreement. This is the PAD document that prescribes how the property will be developed when it develops in the future in terms of intensities of land use. It has a lot of the development standards spelled out in here. So this is just one of the pages of this lengthy planned area development document. Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend for your approval the Encendero planned area development with the conditions that are listed in your staff report. There were 14 conditions that were recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. There was a 15th condition added by the staff since the Planning Commission did take action on this for your consideration, and that condition basically, if I can find that condition basically states that in the event that any of the Planning and Zoning Commission conditions, which are 1 through 14, are inconsistent with the pre-annexation development agreement, then the pre-annexation development agreement will govern. And so that was added as a stipulation number 15. And with that, we are recommending for your approval of the PAD zoning request, subject to the Commission Planning Commission's conditions with the addition of condition number 15. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Mr. Miller, I think you just did. I was going to ask you for the purpose of clarity if number 15 had been added, but you just said it was.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Council have any comments?
No, sir.
Down here? Yes, sir. Anybody from the audience have anything to say regarding item number 17? Okay, in that case, I'm looking for
Mayor,
some action. Yes?
I make a motion to approve ordinance number 1503 as read.
Second.
Okay, Norma?
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 18, ordinance number 15-04. An ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, rezoning certain parcels of land from Pinal County designation of general rural GR to planned area development PAD zoning classification for Sunshine Farms 320 pad consisting of approximately 320 acres more or less, generally located on the east side of Sunshine Boulevard north and south of Kleck in the southwest corner of Section 8 and the northwest quarter of Section 17, Township 6 South, Range 8 East of the Gila and Salt River Basin Meridian, Pinal County, Arizona. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, again, this is the this is a rezoning from general rural, which was the prior zoning designation in the county, to PAD for Sunshine Farms. This is an exhibit, again, the land use exhibit that's found in the Sunshine Farms 320 Planned Area Development Guide. Again, this is the guide that basically sets forth the parameters of and the intensity and density of development. It also is an exhibit within the pre-annexation development agreement that was previously approved by the mayor and council. The Planning and Zoning Commission did hold the public hearings regarding this rezoning request, as well as mayor and council, so those hearings have been completed. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the planned area development document for the Sunshine Farms 320, subject to the 8 conditions that are listed in your staff report. We didn't add any additional conditions to this. We are recommending this evening for your approval of the PAD zoning for Sunshine Farms. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Miller, again, for clarification purposes, are the 8 conditions in or out?
They are in. These are part of the Planning and Zoning Commission's conditions for approval, and they are all part of the record of this document.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions?
Sir.
No, sir.
Audience, anybody have anything they want to say? Not hearing anything or seeing anybody approach, I would call for a motion.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve ordinance number 15-04 as presented.
Second.
Norma, please.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 19. Consider approval of entering into a contract between the City of Coolidge and Fry Construction, Inc. for jet fuel and AV gas facility construction, AST decommissioning of existing fueling facility at Coolidge Municipal Airport, and unfreeze the additional $58,739.01 in capital sales tax fund. Is that Mr. Miller, is that you?
I just want to make sure that we got those annexation petitions in my hands before all these
Yeah, you'll go ahead.
representatives leave.
We can wait a couple of minutes, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I think we got everybody, so we should be fine. Okay, Mayor and members of the council, this has been a difficult process, but we're hoping that we can kind of work through it still this evening. It's recommended this evening that the mayor and council award the contract with Fry Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $558,739.01 and unfreeze the additional $58,739.01 in the capital sales tax fund to complete the project to take out the existing underground tanks that have long surpassed their lifespan. We've learned that these tanks technically should have been out of the ground in 1998 based on a Federal Aviation Administration ruling, because we have a tank under the ground that is a single-walled steel pipe. They need to come out of the ground. We are meeting with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. They're going to provide us with a consent order. As we heard previously, that they want to make sure that these tanks are removed. And they don't really care if they're replaced. They want them out of the ground. We're more concerned that they are replaced, however, because we do have an airport out there that depends heavily on the fueling operations. The original, in the way of history, originally we had thought that the ideal location would be to put them above ground, back in the parking lot area, away from where they are currently located. In my discussions with the FAA and Christy Rigatti and Kyler Earhart with the FAA, they said that if we are going to locate them away from where they are currently located, if they're not immediately adjoining or on top of where they're at now, then we would be subject to an environmental study. We've learned that that study takes a considerable amount of time and expense. So we thought, well, let's go back. Let's try to put them underground, adjacent to the existing tanks. We had a lengthy conversation with the mayor and council about that proposal. We did have a scope of work drawn up. The cost of that scope was about $495,000 to put them underground immediately north of the existing tanks. I think we did have a discussion that perhaps we could save a little bit of money if we put them south of the existing tanks, underground, where the ground was unimproved in front of Mr. Recker's office. I think the council decided that they want to see the tanks above ground. I think that was based on a lot of your own studies and phone calls to other airports, believing that that's probably the best way to go. There are some advantages to having them above ground. We've talked about those advantages, and there's some disadvantages to having them above ground. And I think I clearly articulated what those disadvantages are. Some of the advantages, just in summary, you don't pay the 1 cent sales tax, or the 1 cent tax on the fuel, that you would have to, that you have to if they're underground versus above ground. There are some other disadvantages, but I'm not here to talk about the advantages and disadvantages. We've talked that to death. I think what I'm here tonight to basically ask the council to do is approve the contract. Unfortunately, the contract is more. And you're going to say, why is it more? I'm not going to be here to address that. I think I know the answers, but I think the answers probably ought to be given by our contractor that's proposing to do this. I think I'll summarize briefly for you what he may say is that the differences are that they have to establish a fuel system away from the existing tanks, out on the asphalt where we were going to put them underground before. Those tanks have to be put into operation and tested. They have to have temporary power. They have to have the self-fueling facilities. They have to have all of that stuff put in place, and it has to be tested and operational before they can take the other tanks out. So we have a uninterrupted service of gas going to the customers, because these tanks take some time to get out of the ground and put back into operation. When we put them there temporarily and set them up, then we have to go in and take the tanks out of the ground where they are today. We're hoping that there's no contamination. If there's not, we'll be digging down 14 or 15 feet, maybe deeper, to ground that is clean. And then once that ground is excavated and those tanks are removed and adequately disposed, then that hole has to be filled up in lifts. And those lifts have to be properly compacted and tested for the weight that this site has to carry with these tanks. These tanks weigh over 45,000 pounds each, empty. When you add fuel to these tanks, they're well over 140,000 pounds, if I remember correctly, somewhere in that. So they can't just be put on ground that has been properly compacted. They will sink. It will be a real problem. So we have to make sure compaction is there. Once the compaction is there, they have to build a concrete system that these tanks sit on with curbing that's there in the event that there's any spill, because the above ground tank does have to have containment in the event of some spills. So that the cost of that pad, the cost of the lifts and compaction and testing, and then the cost of putting the temporary system in, and then the cost of bringing out cranes, relocating that system onto its permanent location where they are now, and then retesting the facility. I'll let him talk about what's involved in doing that, but that's really where the cost difference is. But with that, maybe Mike is better able to answer your questions about that. But we are recommending approval of the scope this evening for Mr. Mike Fry to do this on the site. I would like to show a few things, though, this evening as we discuss this some more. We had a very successful fly-in this weekend, the best that we've had. I even took a few pictures. I'd like to just show. The Lions Club, does serve breakfast. We have the fly-ins the first Saturday of every month through the winter months, beginning in October. And this was amazing, the turnout that we had at this particular fly-in. You can see the apron right here, right beyond where these people are sitting at these picnic tables is where we have the 2 dispensers, the fuel dispensers that are on the apron. And the fuel tanks are just behind these people. Their picnic tables are on a gravel area, but this is generally where you'll see the placement of the 2 tanks above ground if we put them where the scope of work is currently planned. This just shows a part of the line which extended beyond out into the parking lot. This thing went all the way out here. This is the grass area between the historic hangar and between our FBO office, which is just off the slide. This is really, you can see this little red line. It's a radius that kind of extends around the fueling area where planes will pull up on the apron and fuel at the existing gas dispensers. In the background, this is the grass area that's just to the south of the FBO office. And on this slide, I didn't do a very good job, but right there's a cone right on the edge of the apron. Well, we were out there thinking about this some more. We looked at what was going on. We looked at where these things would be placed with this scope. And everyone, I think, thought, if we needed to do them above ground, that would be a better location to put them there than put them above where they are right now. And I'm here tonight to say that, that would be a better location. There is the issue that we still have to deal with that I would like to continue communicating with the EPA on, and that is whether this is a close enough site to avoid having to do an full-blown environmental. That cone back there is only about 100 feet away or less. I might be able to make an argument with the EPA that this area has a history of being developed, that we're not dealing with environment that hasn't already been disturbed. If you look at the original plan for the airport, this kind of shows what was out there during the heyday of the airport. And you can see that there are many buildings on this site. This is the apron, and the hangar, the historic hangar with the orange roof is here. There's the FBO office. The tanks that are existing there today are right off the apron between the 2 buildings. And what we're thinking might be a better place, given what we are seeing with these fly-ins, is to put them down here on the south side of the grass, right down there where that cone is, so that they're out of the way of all of this activity where this large hangar is, and our the Lions Club breakfast and all the other stuff that's going on. So we do know that that this property south of the FBO office was recently leased, and there's an idea of putting in a very large hangar that'll support C-130 airplanes. We heard that from Charlie Recker recently. And the location of the above ground fuel tanks would be basically between the FBO office and that hangar. It wouldn't be interfering with either of those operations if they were above ground at that location. So I just offer that in the way of some new information that we discussed this weekend. I can't speak for Mr. Fry. Maybe he can talk about this. We have a scope of work tonight that is more than the original one, stated for the reasons that I've stated. But perhaps, in my way of thinking, if they were put above ground south of the FBO office, there would be probably some savings that we don't have to do the compaction that we would have to do if we put them above the existing tanks. Everything else would be, we wouldn't have to do the relocation if they were allowed to be put down there to the south of the FBO facility. They could put them there, get them operational, that's where they would be, and they wouldn't have to be reconstructed or put back over on the site where they are now. So hopefully I haven't confused you, but please ask questions and I'll do the best I can to respond, and Mike is here to help too.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Rick, is this the piece of property where I suggested that it go and I was shut down immediately when we were out there that Saturday?
I think you were, I don't know exactly, I think you were suggesting that they go in the parking lot right in front of the office, and unless you were suggesting further down, I thought you were suggesting right in the parking lot next to the existing fuel tank.
Not initially, I said further over, and I was,
If you said that, then we misunderstood. You're absolutely right. That would be.
I did go in closer too, because,
Right.
you know, that was in the grass area, but initially it was further over.
If you made that suggestion, you were even ahead of all of our thinking on Saturday, because I think that that's a better location.
I do have a question for Mr. Fry. I think you kind of summed it up a little bit, but the $58,000, well, roughly $60,000 more than what we initially discussed. Somebody said something to me about the inside of the tanks, or have some kind of, I'm just curious on, where the other 60.
I'm learning a lot about tanks and what's the good and the bad of tanks. One of the things that Mr. Fry and I talked about with the above ground tanks, again, this is an issue that I don't think the council really wants to debate, because I think I heard you say you want them above ground, but one of the things they have to do with an above ground tank is that they're fabricated differently than the underground tank. The underground tanks are fiberglass and they are seamless on the inside. They don't have the welds. Those welds don't have to be ground down. And steel tanks that are above ground have to be coated. That coating has to be visually inspected yearly to make sure that the coating isn't coming off. You can respond, but I think I'm telling exactly what he told me. So that there are some things that you have to do with above ground tanks that you wouldn't have to do with the underground tanks. Again, it's which do you prefer? There's also the issue of water. You'll take about 4 to 5 gallons of water off of an above ground tank per month, if I remember correctly. I think that's what Keith Lecker said, per month with an above ground tank, because of the condensation that you wouldn't have in an underground tank situation where you'd be taking off far less water. There's not the condensation in the underground that you would have in above ground. But
So, thank you, Mr. Fry. I'm still curious. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people, including myself, that would like a little better description of why it's $58,000 more when we discussed earlier that it was going to be $500,000 above or below. We could make it under the $500,000 mark. So I'm just curious.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the equipment cost for an above-ground tank is slightly more, but the main difference is the logistics. With the previous proposals, we were going to build a facility and then remove the existing facility. With this proposal, we're going to build a facility, remove the existing facility, and then relocate the new facility over the top of the old. So the cost difference is mainly logistics and equipment.
Okay. Well, see, I understand that. So I'm good with that. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I was never in favor of the above-ground tanks, and now it's costing us another $60,000. I'm still not in favor of it. Everybody was worried about the cost of being $500,000 and how we're going to pay for it. Now it seems like another $60,000 doesn't mean anything. But I just want to voice my opinion. I'm against the above-ground tanks, and I'm against spending the other $60,000.
It's a location issue.
Councilmember Lewis?
We've gone around and around with this thing for a few meetings, I think. I'm a little disappointed because we've asked very specific questions and we were given very specific answers, but those seem to have changed after we decided to go above ground. Who says we have to make these tanks operational before the underground ones are taken out? Because if I recall correctly, that was the concern, was the gap in fuel service, which we really didn't address because I don't think it was a concern on our part as much as it was a concern on Mr. Charlie's part. So at what point did that become something mandatory, that those tanks had to be operational, built in, and then moved? Because this is the first time that's been brought up. And we chose above ground based on the information we've been told. And we've asked very specific questions from you and from city staff, and we were given specific answers that are way different from what we're hearing now. So it's making us look kind of ridiculous, because now we have this $60,000 extra, which we were under the, or at least I was under the impression that it was going to be slightly different. Isn't $60,000 in my opinion. That's a good chunk of the 500,000. If you want to figure out the percentages, it's more than slight. So I don't know where did it go wrong, because I'm assuming you've done this before.
Sure.
So you would have had an idea about the compaction, all that stuff, never told to us before. Building the tank, operational to fuel plants, and then moving the underground tanks, not told to us before. And we've asked these questions.
Well, those were the parameters that we were given.
Who was, I don't remember that being said up here. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't recall any of us saying, let's get these operational before the underground tanks are taken so the planes can be fueled.
Well, there's other ways to achieve operational fueling facilities during construction.
We discussed other ways.
We've talked about bringing in a fuel truck and using that. That's got nothing to do with putting these tanks in and planting them in the ground just to move them a few months later.
Well,
That's two total different animals.
If that's the way that you want to proceed, that's fine with me. That's not the parameters we were given.
I thought that was pretty clear in the last 3 or 4 meetings that that's, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but
I don't think
that's how I interpreted it.
Are you through?
Yeah, if Mr. Huddleston would like to add to
I
that.
don't think we ever discussed, it wasn't even an option that we plant stationary ones first and then dig them up and relocate. We did discuss transporting via truck, having fuel via truck. We never discussed one being planted first.
Who gave that? You said you were given the go-ahead for that. Who came up with that?
I think what we've been trying to do through the scope and through our discussions with all of those that have expressed an interest in providing these facilities at the airport is to have uninterrupted service. So that, we right now have a card system that people can fuel out of 24 hours a day at the airport. If we want to decrease our ability to provide that service during this period of time, we can do that. But I think in our scope, we tried to keep our service levels at what we have been doing. So that I'll take the credit for asking them to do that. But if that's not what we want to do, that's fine.
Well, there's one thing to consider that we can beat up on the money all you want. I'm not thrilled about it myself, but we do have tenants out there that we told them that there would be gas for them to sell, and so we do have to have fuel. Let me ask Mr. Fitzgibbons. We approved $500,000 to do a job, didn't we? Didn't we approve $500,000 to do this project? The last meeting or so.
Mr. Mayor, we unfroze capital sales tax in that
Unfroze it.
amount
Okay.
for this job, but the actual contract, if I recall, was for the underground tanks, the one that council voted on before, and that did not pass.
That's correct.
So the actual money has been unfrozen from capital sales tax for this, but it hasn't, the contract has yet to be approved.
So what you're asking us to do now is approve another $58,739.
Well, it's approve the contract, approve the
the
contract, which has an additional 58,000 in it. In a different scope of work to put the tanks above ground.
All right.
Rick, so you're saying that we cannot go ahead and put the tanks where you're suggesting it be put now, instead of, and then taking the tanks out, instead of going through the extra step?
You're asking a really difficult question. I would love to see these tanks put where you suggested originally, where the little yellow or the orange cone is. They're out of the way, they're above ground, they can be built there and permanently placed there without having to relocate them over the top of the existing tanks. So we would save there, I think, the relocation of those and the equipment that's necessary to relocate those if they're put there permanently. That would be the ideal situation. What I can't tell you tonight, and I would be remiss in not stating this, is that we've been told by the environmental people that if you put them anywhere other than on top of or adjacent to, then you've got to do a full-blown environmental study. I will do everything in my power to work with the EPA and the FAA to promote that 100-foot separation to get them where they should be. And that's a better location than out in the parking lot even, because there in the parking lot we're going to have to run piping through the grass area. If we just located them, shifted them south 100 feet, they would be above ground, they would be next to the dispensers, they would be out of everybody's way. It'd be the ideal location for them. And I will work hard to get an EPA approval there along with our contractors. I'll show them everything I can to get that, but I can't tonight tell you that they're going to approve that. And if I told you, let's just do it and not worry about it, I think I'd be remiss. And I mean, I just can't do that. Our Title 16, Federal Aviation Administration, we have an agreement with the FAA to comply with their rules and regulations. Their rules and regulations are very specific. They say when you are doing a replacement of fuel tanks, if you're replacing existing fuel tanks at their location or immediately adjacent, you can do it with a categorical exclusion, which we already have. If you don't, and you put them somewhere other than immediately where they are, you have an environmental study that you got to do.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. You know, obviously the council voted to put them above ground. I like the suggestion if Vice Mayor Henry was talking about between on the other side of the building, and then I think that makes sense. If you're gonna have it above ground, that would be a perfect place. I agree. That's a great solution to come up with. I mean, I certainly would like to have them underground, but the second alternative would be to move them forward so that they don't affect the building and the look of that. Plus, also, I know the Lions members, you know, cook food and everything, and the open flame part of it, be far away from that because all the electrical was placed on the corner of that building to support that effort, and so that would work. So if we're going to do that, I would think Mr. Miller could work with the EPA to try to get that approved, because the line of sight is just down a little ways, and there's not a change of the material it sits on, and it's actually a better. So I would think the fact that it takes it away from that building that's historic, even though it's not designated, would be a good argument to move it that direction. And then especially if it saves a little money, it may actually bring the cost back down to what we were looking at before. So I would say that's an alternative that I certainly would welcome if that has to be above ground.
I think the item on the agenda tonight is to approve the scope of work in this amount. I'd like the council to approve this scope and direct us to proceed down that path. With that amount, it'll be less, more than, you know, because you won't have the relocation of these tanks over. Seeing some people that are like doubting me, but you know, if we don't do this, then what's the option? I guess as far as the question from Councilmember Lewis regarding having continuous service, we could have a fuel truck out there. What we don't have is a fuel operator. You have to have a certification to fuel out of a fuel truck. I don't know what the cost of that would be, but you can't just go out there and start fueling out of a fuel truck without proper certification. As much as people may have said previously that fuel trucks are free, they're not. Fuel trucks are not free. And so there'd be an expense even doing it that way to keep fuel coming in.
And Mayor, and I also agree with Mayor's earlier statement that we need to keep fuel out there. We were contractually, you know, we've signed contracts with all the different people that are out there, and you know, we've always maintained we need to keep providing fuel, and they'll lose the card lock with the truck. So I think that's the other thing, is you won't be able to swipe the card with the truck, where you can, if they do it the way they're talking about, can relocate everything, then it's a real simple method of putting it out there. That system is moved over, and so it's just exchanging. You shut this down, this one opens up. If the way I'm understanding, that's how it would work. So there would be no interruption. So I think that would be pretty decent.
I would say that I agree with Councilmember Hudson. I'm not crazy about the cost increase. But it's $6,000 a year. Well, that's a 10-year note, isn't it, Lisa, wherever you are? Yeah, so I'm not happy about it, but we need to get this taken care of. We have other issues we need to deal with, but we're going to vote on the way it's worded now.
Well,
Vice Mayor.
I wanted to ask Dennis, if he's wanting us to approve this, and it has the 58,739 and a penny, and we're actually approving this the way it is, then how does that?
Well, I think we're approving the contract that was there before. And, I mean, we have the contract, we changed the scope of work. Inside that contract has the full amount. And as part of this agenda item, it was combined just to unfreeze the additional 58,000. So you'd be approving the entire contract with the new scope of work in the entire amount.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
And Dennis, you could also add the language to have staff explore moving the tank over, which we would look at potential cost savings because of that. So if that's the case, then we would welcome the cost savings, obviously.
Right.
It'd be this amount or less, correct?
Yes. I mean, you could make the motion that way, yes.
All right. Is there any more discussion with the council? Anybody in the audience want to address this issue? Seeing nobody come forward, then.
We have a gentleman.
Oh,
There's one.
you need to
The mic.
come up and. Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Dennis O'Brien, 281 North McRae Road, Coolidge. The cost that you're talking about, the $50,000, isn't that going to the impact fees or the fees or the packing of the dirt after you take the tanks out? Is that correct? If you put them on that site? No. Oh, it wasn't? Oh, I misunderstood then.
Well, that's the way I understood it.
That's a tiny part of that.
Oh, I was told.
We weren't going to backfill the hole.
Wouldn't it be the easiest thing to put the tanks back in the ground where they came from? Wouldn't that be the easiest way, and we wouldn't have an impact of somebody coming out, EPA, and looking at it and so forth like you were talking about?
Well, that's one of the reasons some of us voted to put them above ground, to keep the EPA out of our business in the future.
Well, they haven't been bothering you with the tanks in the ground now, and they're
Yes,
overdue. I
yeah,
mean,
they
they're years
were.
overdue, right?
No, we have a meeting Friday morning with the Arizona Department of Economic Environmental Quality, and then Mr. Miller can address the EPA issue. But that's one of the reasons. If they're not in the ground, then they're out of the equation unless you have a major leak of some type.
And Mr. Mayor, just so we're completely clear, we're looking at dates with the meeting on the ADEQ. Friday was one of the dates we were looking at. I just don't know whether that meeting's been confirmed, but ADEQ does want to meet with the city to talk about the tanks. So,
The tanks being moved to the south, you don't know if that's going to be approved either at this point, correct?
Not at this point. I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, those are good questions, and I can't tonight tell whether the EPA will approve that or not. I hope they do.
Well, Anybody else have anything they want to add? Yes, sir, if you don't mind.
Yeah, my name is Philip Weingard, 1433 Roosevelt, in Heartland. If you put the fiberglass tanks above ground, okay, we're going to stop the maintenance, yearly maintenance on the seams, right?
We can't put fiberglass tanks.
Okay, but if you use them, you would not have to do maintenance on them. Okay, and you're also going to have condensation above ground with the steel tanks. What's that going to cost per year to drain the water off? What's that going to cost in lawsuits from pilots if they crash, kind of water being in their gas? What is the insurance rates going to go?
We build these systems to prevent the water from getting
Okay.
into the.
Okay, if you took a fiberglass tank and put it above ground, hypothetical, and covered it with 2 or 3 feet of dirt, you will stop the corrosion, you won't have it, you will stop the condensation, you won't have it. Why? Why not use that system? It does work. We've used that in our system in northern Minnesota. We've put above the ground tanks, fiberglass, covered them with dirt, 3-4 foot of it. Environmentally passed. Had no trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can address this question. We don't have the room to put, these tanks are 14 feet, basically tall, and you put enough dirt over the top of them, there's just not enough room to put that much dirt and that kind of a mound out there, and so that would look really bad. So, wasn't even a consideration.
All right. So, in hearing all that, anybody else want to come forward? Well, thank you. So I'm looking for a motion one way or the other. Is there?
I move to approve the contract between the City of Coolidge and Fry Construction, Inc.
This is for the freezing.
Oh, wait. Which one are we on?
19.
19.
Yeah,
You're the right one.
You're
It's
right.
the unfreezing.
I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And to unfreeze the additional 58,739.01 in the capital sales tax fund. Now, what else did you tell me I needed to say?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Henry, the only other item would be, there was a suggestion that staff look into placing the tanks south that you asked. I mean, if you want to direct staff to do that, because the contract is a not to exceed contract. So as long as the contract does not exceed the total price, if you still wanted
I did, okay. And direct staff to,
evaluate placing the tanks in
the south.
to the south, as long as it doesn't exceed the current contract
the
price.
current, the current dollar amount. Yes.
Okay, Norma, do you have the
Yes.
We have a motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Doesn't sound like there's going to be a second, so
Okay. Is there another motion? Is there a second to Councilmember Henry's motion? No?
I'll second it so we can vote on it.
Okay.
All right. Well, this isn't a phone. What do you know? It's not an ordinance. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Then, city staff, you need to bring us something we can live with.
I think we need some direction from council, in all honesty, Mayor.
Well, in all honesty, they've sat through the conversation. Some of them still want it underground, but that's not going to happen because it's already been
Some
voted on.
oppose the extra 60,000, or is that where we're at now? Okay.
Well, we're at the extra 60,000, yeah, right now. They just got voted down.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Gil.
Mayor, if I ask a suggestion, I think if we give staff direction to go look at moving the tank down where they thought of it, and then look at the cost, we may come back with the cost back to where it was prior, and that may answer the issue of the money plus the location, and then we'll have a better idea from Mr. Fry as to what'll happen, and then we can look at that without having to lose the card lock and all that, and I think that may be more amicable, and only lose a couple weeks and then we'll be able to talk to ADEQ in the meantime and get us an answer on that. So hopefully then we'll be a little more sure of where we may go. Just a suggestion.
Oh, no, that's a very good suggestion. It looks like we were stuck in the mud there. That's what we need to do, Mr. Flatley, Mr. Miller.
Okay.
All right. So do we need to read number 20, or do I need to read it and then ask it to be tabled, or what?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I think we could just table it. I don't think
Okay.
you have to read it. There could be a motion to table it and to bring it, well, probably it's going to get revised one way or another, so
Yeah.
you could just vote to table it.
Okay. You need me to read it first?
No, you
No?
can just item 20.
All right. Is there a motion to table?
Move to table item number 20.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Me too. All righty. Let me see. We've got,
Surplus property.
we got to go back. What was it? Number
10.
Number 10.
And then 21.
No. Okay.
21.
Okay. Item number 10, we're going back because we asked that Councilmember Lewis has to be pulled off. Resolution number 15-03. A resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Coolidge, Arizona, authorizing the formation of the Fire Explorer Post program, including the adoption of standard operating guidelines and forms for such program, and authorizes city manager to execute any necessary applications or agreements and pay any related fees to the Boy Scouts of America. Chief?
Mr. Mayor and Council, the concept behind having an Explorer program was to give youth something to do and then promote learning and use it as a tool to recruit and retain firefighters as we move forward in future years. The problem with volunteerism is, especially on the West Coast, is it's kind of dying off. So it's hard to keep volunteers active and participating. And through the Explorer program, we can enhance that program. The program will also enhance the youth that are currently attending CAVIT in the fire science program so that they have a better chance of passing their firefighter 1 and 2 when they get to that point. Personal experience, my son was in an Explorer program down south and went through the JTED program, which is very similar to the CAVIT program. They started with a little over 30 students. They graduated 25, and they had, I believe it was either 5 or 6 that passed, but the 4 that were in the Explorer program passed their firefighter 1 and 2 first try through. The other 2 took a second try to get through, and then the rest never succeeded in passing that test. So this is a good program to enhance that ability of them to get through this. The kids that are in the CAVIT program and the fire science program get extra credit for participating in the Explorer Scout program. The kids that are in the Eloy and Casa Grande area and Maricopa do participate in Explorer programs over there and seem to have a slight advantage over the kids that we have here in Coolidge, and we'd like to give them that same advantage. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Anybody have any questions? Mr.
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes. Some of my concerns are, I really don't think an Explorer program is necessary when we do have the program at Cavett. And in reference to your comment about them getting better chances if they're in the Explorer and Cavett, I happen to know how that program at Cavett's ran and who runs it, and I think they couldn't get a better education than what they're getting there, added with what we have in Coolidge. Explorer programs, we're targeting teenage kids, correct? High school age?
Right.
They go to high school Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, correct? Our fire department's in service Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So now we have to pay or ask people to volunteer, which I have a hard time being okay with letting people volunteer to drive the trucks around for liability reasons. Now we have to pay these people to run a program, on evenings and weekends when they're not willing to staff the fire truck on evenings and weekends. I think it'd be a better thing if we teamed with Cavett and maybe offer them like ride-along services, because I think the only thing they're missing over there is getting the ride around in the big red truck. Outside of that, I know they get a lot of opportunities. I think we'd be wasting money, in my opinion. The Fire Explorer program is night and day different from a Police Explorer program, where those explorers have 24/7 access to their mentors because they're on duty 24/7. Our department's not built for this. I think we might have had it before and it kind of failed. I think it would fail again. I'm totally against this program at this point in time where our agency's at. Considering we're fighting over money for the last few weeks on a gas tank, and then we're going to throw some money into a program that I don't think we really need.
Okay.
Mayor?
Well, the money would probably be minimal for this program. One of the grant opportunities that I'm hoping to bring to you in 2 weeks through the SAFER grant actually offers money to do a cadet program, which the Fire Explorer Scouts specifically is included in the description through the FEMA SAFER grant. And the problem with the ride-along program is I think there's some liability issues there, but it would be a great program through the Explorer Scouts to allow them to do the ride-alongs during the summer. Also to participate in the Tuesday night drills, which already are ongoing, and that would give them that educational opportunity to participate in training.
I had more points.
Okay.
To that, I really don't think we're going to give them anything more than they're getting from Cavett. Knowing what they do there, I don't think a Tuesday night drill with us is going to be anything different from what they're doing now. They're being prepared for Fire 1 and 2 and for their EMTs, 5 days a week already. Second, I saw the list of the equipment that's required to have these kids participate, and I've spoken with some of our volunteer firefighters, and they don't even have properly working equipment all the way around the board. So we're going to equip kids with something that we can't even give our guys who do this every day. It just doesn't make sense to me, and we need to focus on our guys first, in my opinion, when there's an adequate program half a mile down the road. That's all I have, but I am against this.
Vice Mayor?
I am for it. I think that I understand there's a difference between the police having the police explorers having the access 24 hours a day, but they can't ride at night during school nights anyway. I think this would help get kids interested in things, and we could, yes, work with Cavett. I think that's a great program. But we need to have things for our kids to do and get them off the street, get them interested, for this, something they might want to do in the future. I think if the city can offer something like that to help out, I'm all for it.
Mayor, thank you. Yeah, I also think it's a good idea. I think Cavett's a great organization, and I think they do a great job, and we're fortunate that we, as a council, approved that property for Cavett. But I also know there's a place to try to get young people involved, especially because we have volunteers. And I haven't heard. Hopefully, if we have some shortages or issues with equipment, we'll take care of that, Chief. But I haven't heard that they're you know, a lot of times they thank us for purchasing all the equipment and everything we've done over the years. I think we've done pretty decent, and Gila Rivers helped us with equipment turnouts and all those, you know, the tanks and those things. So I agree with the Vice Mayor that anything we can do for the youth to get them more involved, especially since we still have volunteer portions within our fire department, it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. You know, eventually we'll be full-time, but right now I think we're going to do the hybrid model. So to keep interested young people that are coming up in firefighting, I think is very important for our city and for our fire department. So I would support it also.
I just have one more comment. I remember many, many, many years ago, we had a reserve fire department, and I was actually on that reserve fire department. But it was all adults that were into that, so I just wanted to, I don't know if any.
How many years ago you said?
Many years ago.
It's like 3.
But I don't know of us ever having a fire explorer post before.
It's my understanding that the current police department post actually started as a public safety explorer post that encompassed both. And at one point, the fire side of it just kind of went away as they focused primarily on the law enforcement side of it.
But that's many, many, many years ago, too.
That was a historical lesson I learned. I can't vouch for it.
Councilmember Huddleston.
I would be against it for the exact opposite reasons that Jackie and Gilbert are for it. I don't think it's the city's responsibility to keep the kids off the streets. I think that's the private sector, the churches, and the individual people to encourage them to do the right thing, especially the parents. And volunteering is one thing. That's great. It doesn't cost taxpayer money. It's not our responsibility to take taxpayer money and do what parents are responsible for.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Well, I just, you know, there's not that much to do in this town.
Yeah.
And, you know, you try to give the kids some type of an opportunity to do something. I mean, you got Little League, you know, you have the rec center. But, you know, I'm the type of guy that likes to be a hands-on type of guy. And somebody might not want to be a firefighter. You know, they spend all this time and money to try to be a firefighter. It might not be for them. So I think this would be a good opportunity to really find out if they do really want to be a firefighter. And I think it would enhance our fire department down the road if they do become a fireman. And it should probably cost us less money to train them if they've gone through this program, in my eyes. So, you know, it might cost us a little money up front, but it could save us money on the backside. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, if we're done with discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 15-03 as presented.
I second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Norma?
Okay. Vice Mayor Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis,
Nope.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
No.
and Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to,
That was 21.
I think that was in retaliation for my no earlier.
The last page.
there we go.
2 more, 21 and 22.
Yeah. Item number 21, authorize the submittal of a written notice to the federal government, General Services Administration, and FEMA regarding the City of Coolidge's desire to acquire the surplus government property at 255 West Roosevelt, Coolidge, Arizona. Jill?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. This evening, we do bring before you a notice packet and a request from staff to submit to the General Services Administration with the federal government a notice of intent to acquire the property at 255 West Roosevelt. As you may realize, it is the old SCIP, San Carlos Irrigation Project building on Roosevelt. It is a 1931 construction building with 4 parcels. The building itself sits on what would be called 3 lots, and then there's 3 vacant parcels adjacent to it. There is a requirement under the federal government to make sure that federal property could not be used by federal government agencies. Since Skip vacated that property, and that's got to be around 4 or 5 years ago, the federal government has determined that there's no other federal agency that had good use of the building. The buildings then, or buildings and property, are made available to other government entities. So the city of Coolidge, being the local government, has an option to file a notice of intent to acquire. There are provisions where the property can be purchased, but then there are provisions where the property can be transferred to a local government if it's used for an intended purpose. One of the purposes is emergency management, and public safety and fire does fall under that provision. And for those of you that have served on council for a while and been party to some of the discussions, there is a desire to locate the fire station in the downtown area away from the complex where it's currently located. That station was not built with crew quarters. It would be very difficult to design and implement crew quarters at that location. It does have the apparatus bay, there is a classroom, and there are 2 offices and restrooms. That's all that could be accommodated. This building at 255 West Roosevelt is quite a bit larger. It could accommodate crew quarters. It could also accommodate meeting rooms and office space for the fire department. On one of the vacant lots, the proposal could be put forward to put a bay so that there is an apparatus bay. And at this point, we would like council's approval to go forward with the intent to acquire. The next step after our filing of intent to acquire would be an actual formal application to the Federal Emergency Management Association and to the Government Services Administration. That application process can take anywhere from 90 to 60 days. We would have to develop cost estimates. We would have to verify that we are not going to demolish the structure since it has the potential of being designated historic. We would need to coordinate with the State Historic Preservation Office. And of course, that full application would come back to council for your approval for us to submit. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have and look forward to following your direction on this item this evening.
Down here. Go ahead, Gil.
Mayor, thank you. You didn't mention, does it include a kitchen?
Yeah,
The fire
unfortunately it
department's
does
a
not.
good cook. No, I think it's a great idea. We have a vacant building that's boarded up, and if we can do something good like that and use it, and because we do have to do something once we relocate that building. But I think it's a great idea if we can get it for a reasonable, especially zero.
At this
That
point,
would be
Mayor,
great.
Council Member Lopez, if it does transfer under this category, there would be no cost for the building.
Like that even
We
better.
would have to pay the remodeling or the repair costs on the building, and we don't have that estimated yet.
Great, thank you.
Good lesson.
Councilmember Lewis, you have anything?
No, sir.
You said this is on the register?
It has the potential to be placed on the register. It's not historically designated. However, the Government Services Administration did call me late last week and wanted to verify that our proposal was not going to include demolition of the structure. That would be very difficult for them to approve. They wanted to make sure that we were going to repurpose the existing building. They will support us if we're repurposing. If we're proposing demolition, they would not be able to support us acquiring that property.
Well, I think certainly the price is right, and there's a lot of land that goes with it.
It is a nice parcel downtown with a lot of
So,
land. I do, Mayor, if I could interrupt you for a
Certainly.
moment. If the Government Services ultimately does transfer this to us under the public safety provision, then the land and the building must be used for the public safety proposal that it was requested for. So we can't get down the line and then say, let's sell 2 or 3 lots. There is going to be a deed restriction against the property that it stay in public safety and specifically fire service. We could expand that and let PD have an office if they needed an office in the area that they've always talked about for the downtown. That would be approved under this distinction, but we could not use it for another purpose.
Well, I think our current fire station has some issues too, so, I mean, it's not going to be around forever, Vice Mayor.
The parking area, would that be able to be used like for the adult center, or no?
We could probably ask that question. The parking has to be set up for the fire department. My concept of the design, and I haven't gone through all the details with the fire chief as of yet, if the parking is on the west side of the building and it's designated for fire, if it is used by other people occasionally, I don't see that's going to be a problem because it's primarily for fire, but we couldn't designate it just for the adult center.
Right, I understand that. It's just there is no parking.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm ready for a motion.
I
Mayor-
move,
Go ahead.
Mayor, I move to authorize the submittal of a written notice to the federal government regarding the City of Coolidge's desire to acquire the surplus government property at 255 West Roosevelt, Coolidge, Arizona.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 22, consider approval of the claims for the month of January 2015. Anybody have any questions on any of those?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor, move to pay our bills.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, report from the mayor, council, city manager. We'll start with Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I heard the Lions Club had a great plan, as we talked about earlier, so that went real well. The weather is beautiful, and it was over 400, almost 500 breakfasts, and so a lot of people were out there. We are keeping an eye on all the state legislature things that are coming through. There's an effort, again, as we spoke about, to take away the city's ability to do rentals, and I know the city manager's been sending out to everybody updates on all that, so it's really important. I know we have Representative T.J. Shope that listens to us, and we'll just let him know what is good for the city, so he keeps us in mind. But we'll keep an eye on that. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember.
Yeah, Saturday we went out to the Lions Club flying also, and it was great, a great turnout and beautiful weather. And then all day yesterday was at St. James Catholic Church for our annual fiesta. I want to thank the city of Coolidge, Chief Malinsky, and his two officers that donated their time to make it a safe place, help the money runners go down to the bank. I want to thank the citizens of Coolidge for turning out. It was a great turnout, and I think when we net it out, it'll probably net the church about $22,000, which between last year and this year, we're going to build brand new bathrooms with handicap accessible, safe for the children and the elderly people, and I just want to thank everybody that was a part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ron? Councilmember Lewis?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor? No. Mr. Flatley?
Okay, you got a number of meetings between now and the next time we meet. By the way, any Tuesday morning, if anybody's interested, the Artisan Village at North School has an open meeting from 7:30 in the morning to 9:30. We usually get about 30 to 40 people that attend. A lot of artists and a lot of interested citizens. So it's open to anybody that would like to attend, and it's every Tuesday morning. Access Arizona, we have an executive committee meeting. Mayor, I don't know if you can attend that. That's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. But
At 4 o'clock?
yeah, but I can cover it. The mayor is attending the San Carlos irrigation meeting. We're talking about the leaking pipes along Northern. That's scheduled for Friday morning at 8 o'clock in the Growth Management Conference Room. The Greater Southwest Radio Show will be putting on a Valentine show at the Performing Arts Center. There's a matinee at 3, and there's a dinner and show at 7. It was very successful last year. In fact, it's just about sold out this year. You have dinner in the lobby, and you go into the show after dinner, and then when the show's completed, you come back for dessert in the lobby. So it's been well attended in the past, and I think there's still some tickets available. You can buy them at the door or through brown paper tickets. CEDC meeting on the 17th. We have a chamber luncheon at Cabot on the 18th. Air Force Jazz Band It's a free show that they're putting on Friday at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's a Performing Arts Center. They're very professional, very polished jazz group. And lastly, the Magic of Illusions. The library is putting that on at the Artisan Village on at 11 o'clock on the same day, on the 20th, on Friday, and that's open to the public as well. So those are all get-togethers before our next council meeting.
Thank you, Bob. I don't have much. I, too, was at the fly-in, and in going all these years, back before I think even the Lions were there, I've never seen that many people at a fly-in in all these years. I was amazed at how many people showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to comment that I've had started my office days 3 weeks ago, and I think they've been successful. We certainly find out a lot of interesting things when the citizens come in and talk to you one-on-one. So I would like to say it's been an experience, and it's been well worth it. So I have nothing else. If nobody else has anything, I move for motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.